皆さんこんにちは。ジャーナリストの岩上安身です。パリで大変痛ましい事件が起こりました。その直後に、この問題をディスカッションする大変ふさわしい、素晴らしいゲストをお迎えすることができました。カレル・バン・ウォルフレンさんです。
Nice to see you again.
Yeah. そして11月13日夜、フランスのパリで同時多発テロ事件が発生して、少なくとも127人死亡、約300人が負傷しました。犯行声明を出したのは IS フランス州で、米国が主導してイラクで継続している空爆の報復であるとしているけれども、フランスはこのテロの報復として IS への空爆を強化したということです。質問はいくつかあるんですけれども、まずこの事件が起きて、そして直ちに報復をするということで、フランスもそれからアメリカも足並みを揃えた。この事件、まず最初の印象をお聞かせください。
First of all, most importantly, we don't know who did it. At the moment, we don't. And secondly, if something horrible like this happens, and if you have not lost all your curiosity as a journalist or as a commentator, you should ask the question, maybe the first question, could it be a false flag operation? And there are many aspects of this one, it's a horrible incident, of course, that will point at a false flag operation. I think especially when I heard about the passport they found, I immediately thought of the Charlie Hebdo thing in January of this year, which also, I think, was a false flag. And then we have the famous passport found in the rubble of the trade towers in Manhattan at 9/11. I wonder sometimes, could this be a signal to some people in the world who should know that it is false flag, that it is one, that somebody is trying to signal the reality here? Maybe not, but I was thinking that. What do I think about it? You asked the question, who benefits from a thing like this? Well, of course, the finger pointing has been at the Islamic State, but what kind of benefit do they have from this? I can't see any benefit at all, nothing. Who will benefit from this? Well, I think the French president, for sure. I think Israel. I think the United States. The United States wants to have the European countries that are like vassals to the United States to be sort of in a warlike mood. They must be eager to fight against something. NATO will benefit very much so. The Secretary General of the NATO has already said that if France wants, we can invoke the article that says all the countries of NATO, all the member countries must help France in this fight. So those are the entities that will benefit from this. That's what I think.
偽旗作戦だともう断定し、しかも都合よくパスポートが見つかったことにね、あなたはもうこれはもうバカバカしいというふうにお感じになっていると。
I am not saying that it was a false flag operation. I say the first question we should ask, is this one? And I'm not sure. We don't know who did it. It could be that somebody did it that we don't suspect at all. It's quite possible, but I don't think so. I think it's a false flag operation, which still, of course, the question is still left. Whose false flag operation? Who did it? We don't know. We don't know who did Charlie Hebdo. We don't know that. We don't know who did 9/11. We have suspicions, but that's a different matter.
誰が利益を得るかということを考えると、この事件は大変奇怪で、一般のフランス市民を殺すことで IS がね、何のメリットがあるんだ、考えると本当にバカバカしいというふうに思います。
I think that think about recent developments. In Europe, the public is beginning to become restless with what is happening in Syria and the source of the refugees. Of course, the source of the refugees is the United States, because the United States creates chaos in Libya, you know, and then in Syria, and the refugees come from both parts. And so the public is also getting restless about the war in, well, kind of a war in the Ukraine, and the sanctions against Russia in the Ukraine. And the public some part of the public is beginning to ask questions about whether this is really correct and whether this is the way to go. And with such an event like this just happened in Paris, suddenly we are back again at that same psychological moment after 9/11, where everybody wants to fight against an enemy. And so once again, you know, you have the established powers in Europe and in the United States. Once again, they are free from doubt and free from any potential political attack.
犯人は本当に IS なんだろうか、それからなぜフランスの諜報機関はシャルリー・エブド事件に続いて犯行を防げなかったのか、あれだけ厳戒態勢を取っていたのに、それからなぜ911以降シャルリー・エブド事件でも犯人は死亡射殺され死人に口なしですね、でパスポートのが都合よく見つかるのか、これ一番最初にお答えいただきました。で IS であるとして犯行の動機は何なのか、これもう実はそこがおかしいだろうという話で答えていただいています。フランス政府の取った行動はフランスの非常事態宣言でした。そして空爆によるテロへの報復だったけど、これは正しいと思いますか、また有効なんでしょうか。
I mean, the French state is declared a state of emergency, which is understandable because the police and the security people must have an opportunity to carry out their work. But how far will this go? You know, if a country declares any kind of emergency, we have to watch out what really is the genuine motive behind it. It could be necessary for a short moment, for a short period, but then it should not be something permanent, which has happened in the United States after 9/11. A lot of civil liberties were curtailed. And it is, of course, possible that this is going to happen in France and also other European countries. This is terrible. I mean, this is really creating the kind of situation in Europe as has existed in the United States for a while. It will mean a more frightened public. It will mean a public more used to bending to authoritarian measures. And all this is against the principles of, of good, healthy national citizenship.
今回の事件を受けてフランスの極右政党の国民戦線のルペン党首がイスラム原理主義者を根絶やしにしようと求めるなど、ヨーロッパの極右会派が一斉に難民訴訟を訴え始めた。今難民の話もしてくださいましたね。で2ヶ月前からシリアの空爆が始まって、その上で今回のテロが起きた。その政治的影響についてどのように考えますか。EU 各国の右傾化でルペンのような極右がですね、大統領候補ナンバーワンのところまで上り詰めてたわけですよ。ところがその主流派というかね、本命が非常に右傾化したことによってルペンの出番がなくなった。極右は世界が極右化しているためにルペンたちのようなかすれてしまったというふうに見る向きもあります。これはフランスにおける政治の影響ですけど、その点について。
Well, if the governments of these countries in Europe are turning further right all the time, then the populists who have a very strong rightist reservoir of complaints, etc., they will not benefit from that because they no longer stand out and they're no longer a special choice for voters. So this is a possible, it's a possible consequence. I think that we should look at the situation in Syria, though, very seriously, because it's a confusing situation. The Europeans in the states that are part of the European Union and that are members of NATO, they are being told all the time that the enemy is the Islamic State. They are the ones that decapitate people, they are the ones who are really in danger, they are the ones who conquer parts of Syria, and so they create refugees and so on. So the idea is that we have to fight against Islamic State. The understanding, but it's wrong, is that Washington is fighting Islamic State. But in actual fact, it isn't. It is actually helping some of the groups that are associated with that radical form of Islamist behavior. For the purpose, this is why America is aiding them, for the purpose of overthrowing Assad, which is a priority for the neocons and the liberal hawks in Washington. They want to overthrow Assad. And of course, what the United States has wanted all along is to dismember Syria, to break it up, to make it different countries, like this happened in Iraq. Same thing. In other words, the United States does not want any kind of stability. It is purposely working for instability and an overthrow of Assad. We know this all too well. But Putin in Moscow doesn't like that at all. Of course not. And so he has actually started to fight against the Islamic State. And he is very successful. Only after a few weeks, he has great successes, whereas the United States in 3 years have not been able to do this. Because Putin thinks that Assad should not be overthrown. He doesn't say that he should be there forever, but he should say Assad is part of a solution for the moment. And Assad should participate in all the events that have to take place for deciding what kind of government Syria will get. The United States does not like that. The United States and Russia are sometimes on a collision course, and this is another example. So this whole story about Paris and about the Islamic State gets very confused. Because who are you fighting? In Europe, they think they're fighting the Islamic State, but they're very misled. It's very completely complicated. And the problem is that the journalists and editors and commentators are not doing their jobs. We have seen the collapse of serious journalism in Europe as well as the United States, as well as Japan. This is very terrible. This is very awful. I, as a former journalist, who of course is always mostly curious about, I really want to know what really happened. I'm a historian also, but that is why I really want to know the truth. So I see around me all my old colleagues who are no longer curious, who no longer ask these difficult questions. It's terrible.
IS というのが正体はよくわからないけれども、有志国連合軍が IS と戦うという構造を崩したくないんだろうと思うんですね、アメリカは。
It's clear. First of all, Obama, you know, we talk about Obama. Obama is sitting there. Obama is waiting until for the time when he is no longer president. He will become very rich. In the meantime, he doesn't want to do anything to endanger his position in history. Okay? So Obama is not guiding this. Obama has allowed the neoconservatives and the liberal hawks, neoconservatives in the State Department and the liberal hawks in his own White House and on the security security thing, and in the UN Security Council, to do something which is very aggressive, which is against the rules of the United Nations, and which has already brought about crises in the Ukraine and in Libya and so on. He allows them to do that. And he is allowing them to do a lot of damage in Syria. He is not taking any initiative. So when you say Obama this, Obama that, you're looking at the wrong thing. We can be sure, he is not stopping it. He is not stopping, and the neocons and the liberal hawks want to get rid of Assad in Damascus. They don't want to get rid of the Islamic State. They maybe also, they say, yeah, Assad and the Islamic State, but first Assad. And they can use Islamic State to get rid of Assad. And that is the conflict with Russia. So it's possible that this recent development